Let's get into some more advanced Excel features with formulas. Alright, we have these 4 columns and they go all the way down to 8 rows. Alright, we have 4 columns and 8 rows. Let's try and selecting a column. So let's make F1 equal to B3. Now when I scroll down this way, it's going to be B4, B5, B6, 7, 8. But once it gets here, it's copying this cell and it's getting nothing. So we're going to delete that. If we copy to the right, we'll get C3 and D3. If we copy this one down, we'll get those, and the same thing here. So all of these are relative because as we copy them, they're going to update. In order to get absolute values, we have to put dollar signs in front of the B and the 3. Now when we copy, we're going to get the same values no matter how far out we copy. It'll always look at cell B3, see that there's a B3 in there, and it won't update. Dollar signs change these relative references into absolute ones. We can do it on both like I've demonstrated, or we can delete one so now B is relative, but 3 is absolute. So when we go down, we still get B3, but when we go to the right, we get C3 and D3. If we were to do it the other way and make B absolute and 3 not absolute, when we go down, the 3 will update to 4, 5, 6, but the B will not update. It'll stay absolute. There will be times that you write formulas in Excel that are okay as relative, but then they won't necessarily work how you expect them to, and so sometimes you'll have to make them absolute. Now let's demonstrate some of the mathematical abilities of Excel. If we do equals, it can calculate simple numerical expressions. It can also do multiplication and whatnot. This is kind of expected. An advanced feature of this would be using the sum formula. It can sum several values. So let's say we want to sum all the values in A. We can select A and it'll populate A colon A, which just means everything in A. Now if we put in values here, it'll sum it. We can alter that a little bit and make it sum if, and the criteria can be that it's greater than 2 or greater than 1,000. Okay. So notice that the greater than 100 is in quotation marks. If I don't put it in quotation marks, it will break the formula. The criteria has to be in quotation marks for this. And it looks through all of these numbers and it sees that the only one over 100 is 2,432, and so that's the only one it sums. If we had another value over 100, it would sum that as well. But it ignores all the low values that are less than 100. In the same way, we can do a counting function. So if I have a list of superheroes. I can do what's called a Countif. Countif, you give it a range, and then the criteria. So in this case, I'm going to write in Superman. So it went through and it counted them all, and it saw that Superman has 8 times. So it counts each of those times, and it returns the number of times Superman appears. I'm going to move this over, and it's going to retain those things. And then I'm going to take this list, I'm going to write in the different categories here. We have Superman, Batman, and Aquaman. Now I'm going to alter this formula. Instead of searching for Superman, it's going to search for what's in this box. So it's still going to search for Superman, so we should still get 8. Now I'm going to scroll this down. And when I scrolled it down, you notice that the E references and the F reference also moves down. Well, we didn't really want that to happen. We want it from E2 to E15 to stay the same. But we did want F2 to update to F3, which is here, and F4 to update, or F3 to update to F4. So in order to keep these absolute, we can put in dollar signs. This way it's always going to use the correct range. So now if we scroll down, there's still going to be the same number because Superman was right at the top. But if we had Batman or Aquaman at the top, it would have missed it because it was using the wrong range. But now the ranges stayed the same and only the last number, the F column, updated. If you ever mess up a formula by accidentally editing it and you don't want that to take place, just hit escape. But if you edit a formula to something that you do want it to do, you have to enter for that change to take effect. Another useful feature of the count is what's called count A, and this will count all. So if we put in this range, it'll count everything in that range. The other thing we can do is if we delete a few of these and they're blank, we can count the number of blank cells in a range. And it shows that there are 3 blank cells in that range. There are 11 non-blank cells. 6 of those are Superman, 3 of those are Batman, and 2 of those are Aquaman. The count function is really powerful and really useful for analyzing data, especially when you have a lot of records or a lot of rows full of information. Another useful thing for organizing data is the random function. The random function will create a random number, and in this case it'll be between 2 numbers. So if we do rand between, if we do the rand between, and then we give it a bottom number of 0 and a top number 100, it'll generate a random number in between those 2 numbers. And we can scroll that down, and then that way we can get a lot of random numbers. This is really useful when you want to randomize things. Instead of having to manually switch everything up, you can just create these random numbers and then sort based on them, and we'll get into sorting later, and that allows you to randomize things pretty easily. Notice when I hit enter though, each time they're going to change. every time that the cells update, it'll update everything. So these values are not static, they're dynamic, and they will constantly change. If you want to get the values out of them, you can copy and then paste and select values. And now these values will not update, but the formula ones still will update. And lastly, we'll look at a few of the date features. If you do equals now with the two brackets at the end, it'll generate today's date and the current time. If we want to change that to only take the time or only take the date, we can go to the Home tab and we can select this formatting, and we can select short date to get today's date, or we can select time to get the current time. Now every time that this changes, it's going to update. For instance, the time. Let me demonstrate that. So if we just have a formula that has to calculate, it'll recalculate all the formulas, and the time will change. Oh, one more thing I'll show you. The Fibonacci sequence is a sequence of numbers that is generated by taking two numbers and adding it to itself. So in this case, you would take 1 and you would add it to 1 and you would get the next number, which would be 2. You can do this very easily with Excel formulas by doing equals, and then you can have the previous two numbers, so H8 plus I8. And then if you copy it to the right, it's going to continually add the previous two cells. So this is an easy way to get the Fibonacci numbers by using formulas, addition, and cell references to constantly update the next cell. Alright, so go ahead and review the math features of Excel. Understand the difference between absolute reference and relative reference. Know how to do the sum function, the Countif function, the random function, and the date function. All those will be on the first guided exercise